Welcome to this Wise Living Water podcast. Our messages are dedicated to guiding individuals towards a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Dr. Norman Wise is thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Through these podcasts, we aim to provide insightful material that will inspire and uplift your spiritual journey. Join us now as we delve into the teachings of Jesus Christ and explore how we can apply His wisdom to our daily lives. Together, we will reflect on the power of faith, love, and compassion in shaping our existence.
Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to convince you argument is bad, and that's hard. There's very few things that are cross-cultural, but people basically argue the same way all around the world. It's something that human beings do well. We don't have to have a class on how to have an argument. You guys already know how to do that. So a couple of things we have to understand. Arguments are focused not on solving problems. They're not even aimed at it. They don't solve problems, but they're not aimed at it. An argument's whole premise is we're going to find out who's right here. And we already know who's right here. You are. Because that's just the way arguments are designed. Or it can be a justice motif. The people in your life are going to hurt you. Have you noticed that? In other words, everyone who's ever been in your life has caused you some pain. Have you noticed that? The other problem is this: the only pain that is real to you is your pain. You have never felt anyone else's pain. At the very best, if you have some empathy, you hear a story that somebody else went through and you go over to your own memory of pain and you lock in on a story inside your own history and you associate their story with your story and you feel your pain and you say, I know what you feel like. But you see, in actuality, the only pain real to you is your pain. And this is a problem. When your loved one hurts you and you want justice, you know that you experience 10 points of pain. Your soul registered 10 points of pain. And therefore, justice demands that they feel 10 points of pain. There's only one problem. There's no meter. And you give back what you consider would create in them 10 points of pain, but you may overdo it. I know it's hard to believe. And you may produce 20 or 30 or 40 points of pain. And at that point, of course, they're saying, well, wait a minute. I got a lot worse than I gave. So we have to have justice. So they have to give back to try to equal the ledger. It doesn't ever get, you get nowhere. Now, sometimes all we're saying really is, I will hurt you until you just leave. I just want you to be quiet. So you see, sometimes we argue just with the idea of, okay, I will hurt you so you'll go away and leave me alone. So you see, argument only has certain goals. One, I'm trying to get you to do what is right, and what is right is what I want you to do. Any questions? It's real simple. I have to hurt you for your own good, because what I want you to do is the right thing to do. So you're making me hurt you until you have the good sense to do what's right. And of course, that's what I want you to do. Or I have to hurt you to make the universe just. You hurt me, I have to hurt you, and I'm just trying to get some justice here. If you would just receive your punishment quietly, we could get this over with. Or sometimes I'm just irritated, and I want it to end, so I will hurt you till you go away. I just want you to leave me alone. Now, how do we hurt each other? Verbal abuse, words, emotional abuse. I know you, and because I know you, I know exactly what will hurt you. See, the people that can hurt us most are the people who know us best. Because they can take the personal knowledge that they have of us that was shared in moments of intimacy, and they can now use those as weapons against us. We might have admitted some weakness to them, and now they're bringing the weakness back up in an argument to say, well, you know you can't be trusted in situations like, right? And so we get into that stuff. Then we can get into physical abuse. The crazy thing is we get elevated and we say we love these people, but we actually go back to an time of arrested development before language, and we don't have any words, and so we do what your 2-year-old does. He starts hitting and bamming and biting. Ever seen a 2-year-old go off? Yeah. So you kind of go back in your 2-year-old age. You don't have any words anymore, so here, let me just shake you. Let me just go crazy. Let me hurt you. Infantile, but we use physical things. We can even use sexuality. We can use sexuality as a weapon, either saying, we won't have sex until you do the right thing, which is what I want you to do. Or we can also even express anger, even in marriage, in our sexuality. We also can abandon and reject each other. See, some people say, I don't fight. I just don't talk. Anyone ever give you the cold shoulder? Anyone not talk to you for a couple days? Anyone just basically, give you the minimal amount of information and the whole time it's hurting you? And eventually you say, listen, I'm sorry, just to get them to start to relate to you again. They actually have found that abandonment and rejection hurt us more than any of the other types of abuse. And we can even use religious abuse. Religious abuse can be any of the above, but it basically comes in when somebody says, well, not only do I think you're wrong, God does. For some reason, God is always on the side of our spouse, And so it's a little intimidating, and it's not just that I'm in an argument with my spouse. I'm in an argument with the big guy. Okay, now I'm really in trouble. Okay, and so all of those different things. Now, you have your aggressive types, which are actively hurting, your passive types, which basically are being silent. We basically say there are different types. There are wolves. Wolves say better to bite first. They're very aggressive people. They will come in and they'll instantly start attacking because they know he who attacks first attacks best. So the best defense is a good offense. They don't, you can be just sitting there and they'll start right after you because they believe that's the way to win. That's the goal, is to win. Then you have skunks. Skunks are not aggressive, but they say, if you mess with me, you'll be sorry. And they basically will even say that, you don't want to mess with me, you'll be sorry. Now, of course, the problem is you may not know that you're upsetting the skunk until it's too late. But nevertheless, that's what they say. Then you have the turtle. Turtles go inside their shells. Anything bad happens, they just go inside, they don't communicate. But understand that all turtles are living in microwaves. Get the image. Eventually, all turtles explode. And an exploding turtle is actually more dangerous than a skunk, okay? You always get these things where people kill themselves and kill their family, and they go out and they talk to all the neighbors and they say, what was this person like? It's always the same. Oh, they were so quiet, never would have, most quiet guy you knew, because you see, they were just sucking it in for years. 10 years of pain exploding all in one moment, that can be pretty dangerous. Then you have termites. Now, termites are people that say, if I get into a front, I know if we get into a head-on-head fight, I'll lose. So they say yes, but they mean no. Because they know by saying yes, you're going to leave them alone. Because you figure you want it, right? Can we do this? Oh, yes, no problem. Then, oh, was that today? Oh, I forgot. These people have the worst memories in the world. Because really, that yes meant no, okay? But they didn't see any reason, and so they come up with excuses. And also, they will do things behind your back to make sure that the plan that you developed will fail. But you see, termites are like guerrilla warfare. They try never to get caught actually getting in the battle. It's called passive aggressive, okay? It's a wolf with small teeth and working behind the scenes, but still pretty aggressive in their nature. So can that process, now what I've just described to you, I just described to you a process we all have gone through, right? We all have been involved in that stuff, right? Can that increase the love you have for another person? You think that at the end of that you love the person more? You think you feel loved more by that person? No. How about trust? Do you trust that person more after you've had that type of exchange? How about respect? You respect each other? You see, the problem is the primary things that we want in a relationship: love, trust, and respect, argument can't give us. Even if you quote unquote win, and by the way, what they found is that any agreement that you have out of an argument will not last more than 6 months. Have you ever noticed how issues will recycle? You've had that fight more than once? Well, that's why. You see, if someone grabs me out in the hall here, puts my arm in a half Nelson and says, Norm, I'm going to break your arm unless you do what I want. Depending on what they're asking me to do, I might say, okay, I'll do it. Then they leave. And I become more and more and more sure that they're not going to be able to get me in a situation where they can break my arm. What's my odds of actually continuing to do what they asked me to do? Low. In fact, even if they'd come in and said, hey, Norm, can you do this? And they hadn't threatened me, and I had said, oh, that sounds like a good idea, I'll do it. Now I won't do it because they did threaten me. Any agreement we make under a threat, we never feel morally obligated to keep. Which leads to the next argument. You know, you never keep your word to me. You promised me. Yeah, I promised you when you had a gun to my head. Emotional gun to your head. And so you see it doesn't work. So argument is like this. You go down to the casino, the lady there, and they have balloons, new game. Then you walk up and say, can I play? She says, sure, and she flips down 5 cards. But she doesn't tell you any rules. So you put down $50. She still doesn't tell you anything. You look at your cards. She still doesn't tell you anything, just sits there and smiles. You put down your cards. She takes your $50. Wait. How do you win this game? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. No one wins this game. You want to play again? Well, that's argument.
You always do this, you always do this.
Oh, right, I forgot. Everything's my fault.
I didn't say it, you said it, I didn't say it.
Oh, you think you are so much smarter than me.
I just need space, all right? Just give me some space.
Listen to me for once in your life. Just listen, please.
You're doing it again. You're doing it right now.
What? What am I doing?
You're doing it right now.
What?
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 Oh, this is just like you.
Oh, here we go.
I am right here. I am right here.
You know what? This is great. This is real great.
You're a jerk. You know that? You're just a real asshole.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I don't even know.
It is always about you.
I'm aware.
My mother was right about you.
Is this a fight?
We are in a fight. We are fighting.
What are we even fighting about?
You should have listened to my sister.
What's the point?
I cannot stand when you do this.
When I do what?
When you do everything.
You know what? You're wrong.
You're wrong.
No, you're wrong.
No, you're wrong.
You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're always wrong. I am always right.
You think you're so smart.
You said that already.
What?
You just said that.
What?
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 Oh my God, just stop. You're embarrassing yourself.
Don't even get me started.
Okay, you know what? I won't, because I am done with this and I am done with you.
I hate your guts.
I hate your guts.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'm sorry.
I am also sorry. Give me a hug.
Okay.
Let's never fight again, okay?
Okay. I love you so much.
Love you too.
You're the best.
I think you're the most handsome man in the whole world.
Hey, help us make our short film, I Am Root Beer. You can learn more about that at iamrootbeer.com. Thanks for watching.
Baby, pay attention to me.
Oh my God, you're smothering me.
Yeah, I figured that made the point better than anything I could say. And so the reason, of course, they can put that into the comedy is that, yes, it is also predictable. You heard your parents do it. You recorded it in your little computer. When you grew up, you said, when I get old, I get to argue like my parents. Can't wait. You know? The only problem is it didn't work for them. So you have to make a decision. Would you like to stop that? Because you see, the only one that can make a decision to not get into that craziness is you. And each person in the relationship has to make a decision. We can do this again, but it won't turn out any different than it did the last 10,000 times. My sister and I, my mom and dad got a divorce, and my dad would visit. And the primary reason he came to visit for many years was really so he can continue to argue with my mother because he missed it. And so he would come, and my sister and I would be in the living room, and they would be there, and they would get into their fight mode, you know. My dad was remarried, it didn't matter. And so they would go into the same fight they had for the 16 years they were married. And so my sister and me would sit there because we were, of course, enjoying the visitation of my dad, watching him fight my mother again. And so, they would get off. And so my sister would say, and he says, and she would tell me exactly what my dad was to say. And then I turned to her and I said, and she says, and we could go back and forth because we had heard this so often, we knew exactly what they were going to say because they've been having the same argument for 16 years. They never did resolve it. Okay, it just, eventually my sister got married and we started to have visitation over my sister's house where my mother wasn't present. I think my dad really missed, having to fight, actually. It was like, this is not as effective, I'm not feeling at home. Well, the first step we have to do is stop. When you start feeling you're moving towards a confrontation, you have to slow down inside. You don't get any extra points in life for talking fast or talking first or allowing the first impulse to go off. So slow down, catch your breath. It'll be all right, okay? You do not have to react. Now, this takes some change of program because most of us have been kind of impulsive. But it means that the couple says, I think we need to take a moment. And the couple can agree, okay, let's take a second before we go off on this thing. And the very first moment you start taking the first step in an argument, you just say, wait a minute, why don't we think before we speak here? It's just recognizing that it starts, and once it starts, it escalates, and once it's escalating, you're saying all kinds of stuff you're going to be sorry for tomorrow. Okay, because you always are sorry for what you said tomorrow. The second thing, you're going to think before you speak. I know that's a pretty radical concept. But you're going to think and say, is this really a good idea? One time I had a husband come in a marriage situation, and he was relating to me, and he says, and then I just told her she was the most stupid person on the face of the planet. And I said, and what was your strategy behind that? And he said, what do you mean? Well, I said, you obviously would have had some kind of strategy. Now, you thought by saying that was really going to improve the situation. He looked at me like, I didn't have any strategy behind saying that. I said, well, that's kind of the problem. Because you should have a strategy behind what you say. By the way, emotional vomit is messy, okay? And we know physically, I mean, if, you had a spouse that was sick, and they, came up and you said, boy, I really have an upset stomach. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Hey, could you put out your hands? Sure. Thank you so much. I'm feeling so much better. You would kind of feel a little misused and abused at that moment, wouldn't you? Because you would expect them to say, excuse me, I need to go to the restroom so I can throw up in a proper place. Well, there are proper places to throw up. You can throw up in prayer. God can handle anything you want to say. He's got extremely broad shoulders. You can go before God. I go down to the beach and I've screamed at God, everything else, and God can take it. God has enough emotional strength to handle my worst day. Isn't that good to know? And I can even go, and I can go to a pastor, or I can go to a counselor. I might even have a friend, but you have to have a sane friend. See, sane friends know not to become cheerleaders for your anger, okay? See, a bad friend, you come up and you say, oh, I'm really angry. And they go, yeah, you should be angry. And they start cheerleading your anger. Go, 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 mad, mad, mad. Yeah, and, so they just build you up into a new level of crazy, okay? They just like to see you get mad, They think it's fun, okay? Doesn't cost them anything, okay? But if you have somebody who can just kind of take it in and not take sides and say, okay, I can upset you now, and kind of talk you down and say, okay, I'll pray for you and stuff like that. That's good. You can go to a counselor. All those places are totally safe places. But I know the shocking news to you is this. Your spouse cannot be an emotional toilet for you, especially when it's about them. Now, they can most likely handle it when you want to come up and vomit about the boss because they don't care about your boss. You can vomit all day about your boss and they don't take any great expense at it. But when it's about them, they're going to take it personal. So you see, we have to exercise some self-control. And so it says to speak the truth in love. Love is self-controlled because you see, love never just randomly spouts off whatever the impulse is. That's not intimacy. That's just emotional vomit. So this is new. We thought what it meant that because we love each other, we could verbally abuse each other. That isn't in the marriage vows. No, okay? That's not the game, okay? So we have to speak with each other. It says, let every word be seasoned with grace. We have to think before we speak. We have to season it with love. Now, by the way, we have to understand, the greatest problem we're talking here about communication. We're going to have to strive to become more sane, more stable, and more spiritual in ourselves. Now, I'm going to have to tell you something that really mess you up. Your spouse is not the reason you lack sanity. So if you've ever thought, the only reason I'm crazy is my spouse, that's not true. Okay? Your spouse is just, in fact, bringing to the surface the insanity that's already in you. But it exists without them, okay? And you say, boy, I could be a stable person if only my spouse was, no. Your spouse is only bringing to the surface the lack of stability within your soul. And you say, I could really be a spiritual person if it wasn't only for my spouse. No. Your spouse is bringing to the surface the lack of spirituality within your soul. You see, the reality is each person can only bring to the relationship the amount of spiritual and emotional and intellectual maturity they have. And really all that's being revealed in the relationship is how much maturity each person has. But the person doesn't have any ability to steal from you your character. It has no ability. So you see, there's a lot of personal work. Actually, marriage brings out, boy, I need to work on norm, okay? Because now I see I've got some things. By the way, parenting has that same impact as well. Our kids will also bring to the surface our true character. So that also works. All these intimate relationships, but we get confused. We start blaming the other person for our stuff. No. Our stuff is our stuff. But it does mean, yes, if we're going to effectively communicate to each other, we have to think about what we say. Also, try to observe objectively what has happened. Objectivity means I not only seek to know what I think and I feel, I seek to know what the other person thinks and feels, and I listen to it, and I see both sides. For instance, this is what you do for a friend. A friend comes in and they start talking about a problem, and a good friend will say, well, okay, I hear you're having a problem with your boss at work. How do they see it? And the good friend will begin to try to give you some objectivity, about that problem. You see, you already know what you think. Have you become You already know what you feel. The question is, what do they think and what do they feel? And how can you get objectivity about it? We need to say, I may not know objectively what the situation is. We also will most likely find many times what we think our spouse is thinking they're not thinking. But at this point, this is just a preliminary point, because most of the time what actually happens, we're not thinking about any objective view of the situation at all. So yeah, there is a danger here in the fact that sometimes we get into mind reading, and that is always tricky. So what we have to do is really, objectivity actually means, what do I know about what my spouse thinks? Well, I may not know anything. I've had all kinds of people come in and they say, my spouse is divorcing me. I said, well, I'm so sorry. And we talk about that. And I said, well, why are they divorcing you? I don't have any idea. Now, wait a minute. How long have you been married? 10 years? Oh. And they're divorcing you? Yes. Why? I don't have any idea. I said, there's a major problem here. Either A, you haven't been listening, or B, you're lying to me right now. So, there's a fundamental problem here. If they were in the room, what would they say? Now, that sometimes helps them. Oh, well, if they were in the room. But you see, they have not validated what they've been told to be a place where they even see it as a reason. You see the problem? In other words, they're not actually validating or seeing in any way as having any weight. I had a sister the other day, and her brother wrote her a letter. And her brother shared with her some things about things that had happened in their life. And he had been at Europe at one time, and she had not come and visited him. And he had expressed that he felt abandoned and rejected by her because she hadn't had any contact with him. There wasn't any telephone calls, there wasn't any letters, there wasn't any. And she got very offended, because from her point of view, she just heard that as an attack, you see. It hurt her feelings to think that her brother thought that she had failed, rather than hearing it as, I want you to know how I feel. Because, by the way, the brother gained nothing by writing the letter. This was several years later. He was actually seeking, but she couldn't see that he was seeking a more intimate relationship with her. She just saw it as an attack because, oh my goodness, he said I failed. Can you believe the audacity? He said I failed. I hate to break the news to everybody here. I had to break it to myself. Everybody's failed. And if you're under the illusion that you never fail, that's a problem. And that problem isn't with the other people in your life.
Thank you for choosing to be part of the Wise Living Water podcasts with Dr. Norman Wise. We hope these podcasts serve as a source of inspiration and enlightenment as we grow in our faith together. Our content is designed to offer wisdom, encouragement, and guidance for those seeking a deeper connection with their faith. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual exploration or have been on this path for years, There's something here for everyone. If you have any comments or suggestions about today's message, please send an email to wiselivingwaterchannel@gmail.com.